Welcome to the Dr. Donna podcast, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 137, More on Trauma, Part 1. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
This is Dr. Donna, and welcome to my podcast. So today we're going to go back and talk about trauma again. It's probably in light of the fact that, the disaster that happened in Hawaii recently. And it feels like almost every day, if you turn on the news, you hear about the latest trauma more than any other thing. In where I live, we have a small TV station, though, that tries to focus on the more just, human interest stories more than the traumas. And I could really tell as I go back and forth on the channels when I'm watching that, on one channel, it's like disaster, trauma, horror, the latest. And the other channel is, here's somebody that, served in World War II. And, it's like, and then they talk about the guy and it's like, well, okay, that's pretty nice. I guess there's still a trauma there because it was war, but, the man is getting, or the woman is getting some kind of recognition. But, I wanted to talk today about trauma again, because that's really what this podcast has usually been about. And so I just want to run through some of the realities of trauma that if you can remember this, I think it will help you a lot. I mean, you're not going to remember the whole thing, but you might. It is very important to identify that all trauma is valid. It's like any trauma that a person has. If they feel, frightened, if it tears their world apart, even if it doesn't tear the whole world apart, if it stops them in their tracks, if they feel afraid, the fight, flight, freeze kind of reality is that all trauma is valid. And, I would like to say that there are some things that people call trauma that I personally don't think is trauma, even though I just said that all trauma is valid. It's like there are big T's, what we call big T's, which is big traumas, like the trauma that happens, when there's a car accident, or what happened in Maui, the hurricanes that hit Florida. I mean, these are big T's, and meaning that these are big traumas. Anybody would notice that this is traumatic for everyone that is there. And as it moves along, it changes. So, it's like whatever trauma you're experiencing with a big T, you can trust the fact that it will change as time goes on. Then there's little T's, the little traumas that happen in people's lives. And, they can be like, say you go to the doctor and they say, hey, we found, there's a mole or something on your back that doesn't look very good, or think, we need to take that off. For a while, usually until they get the results back, you are in what we call little t, because it's very traumatic. It's when somebody's, when the doctor says there's a mole here, we need to take it off. We need to get it tested to make sure it's not melanoma. That's on your back. So you are traumatized for that time. And, if it's ever occurred in your life, you know that you remember that. You remember that day and what happened. Because little trauma, little t, has a way of, moving into your memory bank and staying there, and it creates part of who you are. So I want to talk about that, that little t, big T, and then there are what you call, I had a young woman tell me that microaggressions are traumatic, and it's like, first of all, you got to look for them, and if they don't seem traumatic to most of the people, they're not really traumas. They might feel that way in your own life, but if you are down on that level of finding that, whatever microaggression you think you're experiencing, it's like that is traumatic for you, then what I can say is that when the big T's happen, you're not going to be very resilient. And that's my concern about, I'm going to go looking for these, little things that happen. And, as I find them, I will identify them as traumatic and all of these. It's like, that doesn't create resiliency. We're trying to become resilient. It's the only way that you can become resilient is by going through life on life's terms. Now, that doesn't mean you have to accept all of the, real, the ugly things that people do to one another. But if you acknowledge and, have a boundary with it and say, oh, well, that wasn't very nice, but it really wasn't about me anyway. It's more about that person. I mean, if I went through life every day identifying all of the microaggressions that I find are committed against me as a gay woman, okay? It's like, I want to tell you, that's all I'd be doing all day. And that's not really how I want to live my life. But when it's a real little trauma, little T or big T, something that everybody could identify with, oh, that's a really bad thing, like a hurricane or a car accident or finding a mole on your back or, having a major fight with somebody in your family that you really care about that can't get resolved. Those are very traumatic experiences. So when you experience trauma, you have to remember that it's valid. If I'm having a reaction, it's a valid reaction. And, if I'm going to become more resilient around that, I need to take care of myself. Okay. Physical self-care is really important when you are dealing with your own trauma. You might not feel like you want to sleep. You might not feel like you want to, eat real food or, it's like, take care of yourself in that way. You might not want to reach out to your friends, but that's when you need to do those things. Physical self-care, getting at least 8 hours of sleep, taking naps if you need it, eat the healthy meals, or even just small snacks. And then, of course, this is my mantra of every single day. Exercise is really important when you're going through a traumatic experience. Now, those of you who've heard me before, then you know that in my world, exercise is not, well, if I feel like doing it or if I don't feel like doing it, that's going to determine whether or not I do it. I exercise every day. I put it in the same category as brushing my teeth. Okay? I don't sit and think, well, should I exercise today or not? And, at my age, I guess it's really paid off because, okay, let's see. day before yesterday, I did a 9-mile hike up in the mountains. And yesterday, this was like, okay, right the day after the 9-mile hike, I did a 14-mile hike up in the mountains, high up in the mountains. And today I'm doing this. And so you can think, well, it's like, when I'm 72, do I want to be able to do that? Good question. You might not be a big hiker, but the things that you enjoy doing, do you want to keep doing that? Because if you stop moving, you'll stop moving. It's that simple. It's not a complicated thing, but when you are experiencing trauma, you need to be able to exercise. Like when I got up this morning, I noticed that, well, our air quality here is crap today because we have forest fires everywhere. And it's kind of what happens here at the, end of summer and while the world seems to be burning up. But our air is hazardous today. So I won't be hiking because that would be ridiculous. So what do? Well, I work out with my little weights. I don't lift big weights because that would be ridiculous. But I have several routines that I can do that I've made up any day of the week. Because exercise is as important as brushing my teeth, eating decent food, and getting enough sleep. Resiliency is the most important thing that human beings can experience, because what it means is that every time you go through something, you come out stronger. You come out wiser if you are resilient. So if you are going through or experiencing trauma, it's also important to feel your feelings. If you're angry, feel angry. If you're sad, feel sad. If you're afraid, feel afraid. What I know as a therapist for 50 years is that when you try to deny your feelings, they come out in other ways. So like if I'm angry about something and I don't talk about that anger, it's like I don't have to like process it to death. But if I don't at least say, that really makes me mad, I'm really angry about that. If I'm like, no, I'm good, it's like whatever, blah, 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 it's going to come out somewhere, somehow. It might take a while, but it's still going to come out. It might come out when I'm driving. It might come out if somebody, like butts in front of me in the store or something. And it's like, or, hey, how about if it comes out physically? So that now I just add to a heart problem. It'll come out. Emotions are human energy. When you say what they are, you take a lot of that energy out. So I can say, I'm really angry about that. Really, really angry about that. I don't have to do anything about it unless I want to. But, if I do something about my anger, then, as long as it's responsible, that also helps that energy get out. If I'm sad and I try and pretend I'm not sad, at some point that's going to come back and kick me in the butt too. I might say, it's okay to say, I'm really sad about this. I feel very, very sad that, those people in Hawaii are having to go through this. I feel sad about that. And, it's not my personal trauma, but seeing it on the news felt like I was a little bit traumatized by even watching it. I only need to watch those things once. So, I get it the first time. But sadness is one of those emotions that if you just refuse to acknowledge it, because, well, maybe I have what I call toxic positivity, which is, everything's fine all the time and I'm good and everything lovely. It's like, that is actually going to come back and bite you. Okay? Because it's not true. It's not real. It's all right to say you're sad about something. And fear. Fear is big when you're going through a traumatic event, because something that's traumatic usually has with it, that surprised me. And when you feel that kind of surprise, it's that fight, flight, or freeze reaction. Got to get away from it. Want to fight it. Frozen. So, it's like feeling your feelings and acknowledging what they are. Like, oh, I was really afraid. I'm really afraid. I still feel a lot of fear. Several years ago, I don't know how long it is and doesn't matter, I took training in CISM, which is Critical Incident Stress Management training. And, what that was about was, I was a person that they would call this, the police or someone else would call if there was a traumatic event. So say, I remember one I went to where it was a bank. It was, after a bank robbery had happened. And I went in and, I said to all of the people, you can talk to me and you can tell me as much or as little as any, as you feel like talking about what happened to you. But individually, I want to talk to you about how you feel now. Because they were robbed. They work in a bank. They were robbed first thing in the morning. And there were guns. And every single one of them says, well, I was really afraid. Well, yes, you would be. That would be a traumatic event for anybody. And now it's a traumatic event for you. So, I expressed to them that, acknowledging their feelings is a good thing because you don't want it to come out sideways. You want to do good self-care. You want to eat right. You want to get some sleep. You want to talk to whoever it is that you feel safe talking to process this thing. And, and also this kind of goes into the exercise thing, but I'll tell you what, taking a walk and being in a natural, like even taking a walk down the street. If there's grass or trees, there's always going to be birds flying around somewhere. I mean, taking a walk and noticing what is in that walk is a very good way to deal with trauma without trying to deny it. And at first, when you have a trauma, your experience will be numb. It's like, that's true for everyone. You get numb. And it might only be for a few, for 30 seconds, or it might be for a few days, but the numbness will wear off. And then, it's important to identify what your feelings are. And for a lot of people, they don't know what the words are. Okay. So it's anger, it's fear, it's pain, it's sadness, it's guilt, it's shame. Okay. Those are all really difficult feelings, but they're all there somewhere. Okay. It's like if you go through a really traumatic event, say a hurricane or a fire or something where people have died, you'll probably feel survivor guilt. How come I'm still here and they're not? And I've heard people say that. It's like that is an absolute appropriate feeling to have if you have gone through some kind of a traumatic event. And that can be true for big T's or it can be true for little T's. Okay? Little T's, things like, somebody bullying you on the playground, unless they bash your head in or something, call you a name. That's a little T. That isn't, it's not going to change your life unless it happens every day, which then it becomes a big T. But, we all experience these. And most of us lived right through it and became quite resilient. Now, there are helplines every day. There are helplines that are set up all over the country that you can call if you are in a lot of distress, especially if you've experienced a traumatic event and you just want to talk and you don't know, you're not in therapy already, or you don't know a good therapist and you really need to talk about it. They're what they call disaster distress line. And it provides 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, 365 days a year crisis counseling. And I will give you that phone number. It's 800-985-5990. I'll say it again, 800-985-5990. Now, they don't care whether it's a big T or a little t. If you are in distress and you need somebody to talk to, they're there. They also have an ASL Now, and it is you call that number and you can get help. If you are hard of hearing, you can still get the help. It'll give you a button at the end. So remember that, and you can see that. Connect with your community. That's one of the ways that people who are going through big traumas get support, and that is by connecting with their community, those people who are still there. Sometimes there's, like school shootings, when those kids pull together and support one another, they get strong. They get very resilient through very, very painful and difficult experiences. In fact, I saw in the newspaper that David Hogg, he is a perfect example of how really young people can become very resilient. He's connected with his community. I hope he does run for office sometime, because he has great leadership qualities, and he has a moral compass, which I find to be kind of refreshing these days. But, he's a really good example of how, if you connect with your community and you keep going and, do what you got to do to take care of yourself, because obviously he didn't crawl into the bottle or start smoking pot every day, or, he finished school. He became very resilient. And that's what we're looking for. There's no way that human beings are ever going to avoid trauma. We live on an ever-changing planet, for instance. No matter what we do, there's always things that happen just because we live on this earth, like a volcano shooting up out of the earth, or earthquakes, fires. And, also, when you connect with your community, you have someone that you can talk to that understands completely, because they experienced it too. And then there are times when you are going through some kind of a traumatic event that silence helps. And I have found this to be true. I'll just go, I'm out the door, I'm walking, and I'm just listening to the quiet. And if I can't get it where I live, I just go up into the mountains a little ways and just get out and walk around. I don't have to go on a 14-mile hike. If I can get it. If I can pull it together, I will. But to be able to just be in your own self, silent, quiet, able to hear your own self, hear your own thoughts. What do I think about this? how do I feel about this? Sometimes you can get in touch with your own feelings by just being quiet. And this is also very grounding. If you can, like, even just go sit on the lawn somewhere, just being out in nature where you can feel the quiet. That can be very helpful to you when you are going through a traumatic event. Now, don't do this all the time, every day, because that creates isolation. And isolation is your enemy. It's too easy to just crawl into your own self and ignore the rest of the world. It's easy to do that. But we are social animals, and we need each other. And we need to remember that. We need each other. So I'm going to continue this next time. And when I start my next session, I'm going to be talking about practicing mindfulness and centering and grounding yourself to go when you're going through a traumatic event.
Thank you for listening to the Dr. Donna podcast here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Dr. Donna podcast is copyright 2023 Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The SoulWorks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. SoulWorks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.